It has been said that in Twilight Struggle, you need to know the cards well in order to play well. Well, we're going to take you through every card one by one, and we're going to help you become a master at Twilight Struggle. This is Legendary Tactics. The Socialist Governments card allows the Soviet player to remove up to 3 influence in Western Europe, no more than 2 per country. It is a powerful event, no question, but how can the Soviet player use it to the maximum effect? How can the US player mitigate it? This is what we will explore in today's video. First, let's look at the strategy for the USSR. Obviously, Socialist Governments makes a great turn 1 headline because the US will be obligated to try and repair the damage to West Germany and potentially Italy if you don't coup there and if they haven't over-controlled it. This buys you 2 action rounds in a row where basically you will get the opportunity to do a battleground coup, for example in Italy in round 1 and Iran in round 2, or just get the Soviet steamroller underway by snapping up lots of territory. Either way, the American player will start off the game on their heels. And this is true even if you are playing the US with an extra op at the start, as that extra op usually goes to reinforce Iran, not Italy. A great follow-up to a headline of Socialist Governments is duck and cover. And the reason for this is because in a standard USSR setup with an influence in Yugoslavia, after playing Socialist Governments, you can just place the 3 influence in Italy, and because the DEFCON drops 1 level, that is protected from a counter coup on the part of the US. And the victory point sacrifice at that DEFCON 5 is only 1 victory point, so the cost is quite low to gain control of Italy. And this is great because if you're using the standard setup, this allows you to take control of Italy without the risk of a die roll, and yet still allows the potential of an Iran coup in your next action round. Really, for the USSR, Socialist Governments is a great headline no matter what the circumstances. Follow up a headline of Socialist Governments with Europe scoring in the first turn and rack up the points. Reduce the UK to hamper the use of the special relationship card, especially after NATO is in effect, or remove control of Canada to prevent NORAD from firing after your battleground coup on action round 1. France can also be attacked with this card. Lots of possibilities. If you don't headline it, it's less useful as the turn progresses, and you may be better off just using the 3 ops. If you do have it later in the turn though, you might choose to play it for the event in the last action round, which would dissuade the US from doing their usual last action round play, which is using their ops or an event to set up a dilemma for you in the next turn. The US might be compelled to repair the damage you do in Europe instead. The US player will typically space this one, but if they have to play it, they usually have to play it just to replace the lost ops. So it's a bit of a lost turn, but it may just be necessary. And hey, at least you got it and not the Soviet player, so you have some control as to when it comes out. Only make sure you have access to replace the influence. For example, here, if the event happens and these 2 influence are removed from Italy, the US has no direct way to put those influence back into the country. And they would have to either go through France or through Austria, some other way of getting there, which may be too late. In that case, take the card for ops first if you're vulnerable and boost the countries as necessary before letting the event happen. This way you can get back into the territory you may have just lost. In this example, this is another way you could use the operations points to prevent a complete loss of Italy. If you're under the Red Scare Purge card, spacing it may be the only realistic option because the ops that you get from the card won't be enough to undo any damage done. Especially in the early war, this card is worth holding on to until late in the turn, just in case the Soviet player has blockade in hand. I can't think of a better early war card to discard as a result of the blockade event. This event is especially powerful because it is not a starred event and will return a few times through the game. It is a perennial threat, and the USSR player will be sure to make the most of it. If possible, the US should over-control the battlegrounds in Europe the same way the USSR should to mitigate John Paul II becomes Pope or Eastern European unrest. Try to over-control them well ahead of time if the scoring of Europe will be affected, so you don't have to worry about that nasty Socialist Governments headline. The Late War Iron Lady card is a bad US event, but at least it can prevent future plays of the Socialist Governments card. If it's the late war and you have Socialist Governments in hand, you might want to hold on to it until late in the hand or even carry it over until the next turn, as the USSR player is very likely to trigger the Iron Lady event if it comes up. If you then happen to get the Iron Lady card, you can always send Socialist Governments to space and play Iron Lady for the ops. So, in a nutshell, the USSR can make great use of this card throughout the game, especially as a headline. The US needs to figure out how to mitigate this nasty event, often having to deal with it many times per game by over-controlling in Europe and making sure that influence remove does not cut off access to key countries. This has been an analysis of the Socialist Governments card in Twilight Struggle. I hope you found it helpful. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. And this has been NATO with Legendary Tactics, and I look forward to seeing you next time.